Sweet. Good morning. I hope you had a great weekend. I sure did. I hung out with the boys on the hilltop. Always a great time. But I ended up running out of titanium white on the little lighter time lapse over the weekend. Well, I was already running out, but it was the last nail in the coffin on it. So I'm on my way to the supply store to get titanium white. I think I need some burnt umber and probably some ivory black. I like ivory black a little bit better than Mars black because of the slightly more glossy finish. The Mars black has a very nice matte finish, but not so good for what I like. So I'm gonna go get a couple of things. I'm starting a new piece today. I'm not sure what, as usual, but we're gonna figure it out, of course. And I'm just trying to set the tone for the week. I can have one, if I push it, maybe two more 24 by 30s done by the end of the week, and that'll put me at 5 for the month, I think, which would be really, really nice. And yeah, I'm trying to just gauge, in this mid-scale, what I can get done in a month. 4 or 5 to me would be a pretty healthy amount. I think 6 would be pushing it, because that's more than, I'm seeing they take maybe 3 or 4 days on average. But yeah, man, we're keeping the positivity up, we're keeping the energy up. Might not seem like it as much as this morning, but I'm very excited to get into the studio. I'm also trying a new routine at the old gym. So I went early this morning, like 9 o'clock. I went early and I got out early, so now I've got the rest of the day to paint and edit, which is cool. I feel like it's a little bit better of a setup than when I go paint and then record and then I have to worry about editing and then getting to the gym. I feel like getting into the gym, I think I mentioned this in another video, but it's in terms of physical exertion, it's the hardest thing that I do. So getting in there first thing in the day is feeling kind of nice, but it does put me at, like, I guess my energy level is higher, but I'm also more exhausted. I feel more engaged with the day, but my body is also, whoa, bro, So we're gonna have to just figure out a way to get through that, and we will. We always do. Well, road closed over there. Great. What else, dude? I guess I don't have a whole lot else. We're just keeping. Today is one of those days where we've got to rely on consistency and just discipline over maybe motivation. I saw a little meme about that on Instagram. There's like a little diagram, and it's like, this is what it's like when you're motivated, and this is what it's like when you're disciplined. And today is definitely one of those days where we're gonna have to rely on discipline because my body is exhausted. In a good way. Exhausted in a good way. But still, it weighs on me. I don't know, man. I'm just talking at this point to just talk. So I'm gonna get to the art supply store. I don't think I'm gonna take you guys in there with me because I'm not ready to do the, like, hey, what's going on YouTube? I'm not ready to do all of that just yet. I'm comfortable in the car. I'm comfortable in the studio. Taking you guys, with the friends has been good, but as far as like in the wild, bro, I'm not quite there yet, but I think maybe I'll get there. So I'm gonna get the supplies that I need and then get to work, and I'll see you in there. I don't know why I did that, fuck. All right, dudes, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but these are mine. I very much believe in like the flow state thing, you know. It's something that I would say I strive for in each session. Maybe not something that I get to every day, but it's something certainly that I strive for. And really, just for me, it just means a state of deep focus where kind of, you know, all sense of time sort of start to disappear and you really lose yourself in the process of the work. For me, it's not so easy to just get here and get in and go. I need what I like to call a segue. And that is just something that I do before I paint that starts to prepare, I would say, maybe my mind and soul for the workload to come. And it's something that begins to just, I guess, signal to the brain and body that, hey, we're about to start working, and we're gonna start trying to cultivate this state, and we're gonna start concentrating. So gear up, baby. And for me, the way that I do that is by playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater on PlayStation 4, on the PS4. I've only got a PS4. All the buddies are telling me I need a PS5, etc. I don't really see it, not yet. But as far as the 4 is concerned, for me, it's a perfect tool, not only to segue into painting, but also as something to do in between sessions, you know, because for me, you know, painting doesn't just happen in just one long continuous session. It's usually in shorter bursts, followed by an even shorter break. And so for me, this video game specifically is something that helps me get into that state. So I find that, you know, if I play for maybe 15, 20 minutes before I get started, I'm kind of just ready. And I would encourage you to find something similar. You can, of course, choose the same thing. Other people, I think maybe they, you know, some people will probably maybe like read, or some people do other things. I don't know. What do you do? If you've got a thing like that, let me know in the comments. I'm always open to new strategies, but for me, this one has been very helpful. So I'm just getting started with this now. I'm gonna, you know, play for a little bit, and then we'll get to it. Busted, Projectorino. First things first, you know the deal, getting the drawing on. This one was a pretty simple composition, so the tracing part went by pretty quickly, as I'm sure the painting part will as well. I'm working pretty opaque this first layer, kind of like I did the last one. I'm actually noticing that the working in thin layers kind of thing is actually, for me at least, more advantageous when I'm working large scale as opposed to on the smaller side. Working on the smaller side, I kind of do like getting that nice thick layer in at the beginning, and it helps a lot more. Another thing I would say to keep in mind is don't judge colors, you know, when you're mixing them before you apply, especially because colors are just mixed sort of in isolation, and sometimes you'll mix a crazy orange and you're like, man, how could this go on like a leg or a flesh tone? And you put it on there and you'd be surprised by how much it makes sense. One of the other things I'd like to mention is when you're blocking something in, even if you're working from a tracing, etc., make sure that your shadows line up. That's something that for some reason I always overlook, or I overlook it a lot. And then when the shadows, when I'm done with them, I'm like, oh yeah, look, those lined up. But for some reason in the process, it never occurs to me to make sure that your shadows all line up. And so here's a little close-up of what that looks like. Painting in the actual shadow parts, and making the distinction between the shadow and the actual ground. I'm also making very sure not to just butt these colors up against each other. Again, kind of like we talked about with the cat and stuff like that. With these shadows, there's not going to be just a perfectly crisp line. There's always going to be just a little bit of a kind of like a blur, or a diminished sort of boundary between the light and the dark. And that's just because there's distance, you know, and that's gonna be the case more so the further you get away, the further the shadow gets away from the source. So the cat will be the blurriest, and then the shadows of the feet will be the sharpest in place. And then I'm just kind of finishing it up, blocking in the color and getting ready for the next day, which should be a breeze with this one. It's a great composition. Excited for it. Okay, so a good sesh on this first day. But man, you know, something that I remember, or not remember, but something I'm realizing is that since I'm working on the smaller scale, I'm getting done earlier. And so that's one of the, you could either call it one of the advantages of working on the smaller side, or one of the disadvantages of working on the larger side, is that when you're working big, your sessions are going to be dedicated mostly to that piece, to making progress on that single piece. At least in my case, that happens to be so. I think, you know, you can always do things like start a big one and then pepper in some sessions of small ones throughout. But I find that for myself, I'm a lot better at just like starting and then working through one piece at a time, as opposed to having several things going. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe it's because I usually tend for things not to look alike. My tendency is for things to kind of be dissimilar, right? So it would be hard to carry over as a template, like, okay, I've got this big batch of paint and they've all got this sort of color so I can apply or whatever, or this, you know. So the question is, what am I going to do with the rest of my fucking day? And I've got an idea. You know, when you've got nothing to do, the best thing to do is experiment. So that's exactly what I want to do. It's what I've been it's exactly what I'm going to do. And I think I've got somewhat of an idea for a direction. I'm going to be using the airbrush and some acrylic paint. And I'm kind of working on something that I guess I can't really explain it too much at the moment, but I'm trying to create some paintings where I'm using the airbrush and masking tape to create shapes that are only recognizable by the outline. It's as best as I can put it. From here, I'm just going to show you. So let's get back to work. Okay, so here's a quick look at how it looks from the top. I'm a little frustrated with it because it's not, I don't know, didn't really pan out, I guess, the way I wanted it to, but I actually don't know. I guess I don't know how I wanted it to pan out or what I expected, but that's the point of an experiment. So what I'm going to do here is just start peeling the tape and see if we get a mess or a masterpiece or something in between. This is just something that I've wanted to do for a while. I hadn't gotten around to doing it. Today I have time. So we got this varnish remnants, which I don't like. Awesome. Just peeled all the way the fuck up. Great. it's a, I don't know if you can see it very well with the light. Let me turn it off. Worse. It's a little underwhelming, TBH. Looks kind of fucking dumb, actually. Yeah. Guess I don't really dig it at all, actually. I don't know. Maybe I've got to do something else to it. That's it for today on this thing. I might do something else to it, might not. Well, I would say a solid day of just working on, you know, painting for the first part of the day, and then a kind of underwhelming experimentation sesh. I'm obviously like a little bit, or a lot of bit disappointed, you know, mostly in myself for being a fucking failure. I mean, obviously I'm kind of kidding, but if nothing else, hopefully that gives maybe just a window into how, I guess maybe how harshly I judge my own self while working and stuff. For as much as I think I'm, you know, wanting to pretend like I didn't have any expectations and it was like an open-ended experiment, etc. I obviously had so I guess maybe I forgot my camera card. Be right back. Okay, if I guess I were to try to put my own frustration aside and look logically at what I did or did not like about the experiment, I would say what I did not like was how everything kind of looked sort of muddy and nothing really stood out, I guess, the way maybe I wanted it to. I wanted each layer to kind of feel like its own little world, and I can see now that that did not happen. Each layer kind of bled into one another, and obviously that's my fault because I did not treat each layer like their own little world. I was kind of rushing to get through each layer. The frustration of like overspray and then getting little bits of paint everywhere, and then all of the bottles starting to freaking accumulate around me, and then the plastic sheeting, and then tape getting stuck to the plastic, and then having to pull it, and then the tape not sticking to the fucking painting, and like just all of that shit contributes to just like this like slow building frustration. And so as an antidote to that, I would say you got to keep the space clean. You got to keep it immaculate like the whole time. Got somebody just decided to walk in the middle of the street here, and I would say that you got to just keep it immaculate, and that's gonna help with that, man, because the frustration of the material starting to overcome you it will create a lot of overwhelm. So if I wanted to improve each one of those layers, what I would do is probably wait for each layer to fully dry. I don't know how long that would actually take. I mean, I guess the whole reason that I used acrylic was so that it would dry right away, but even then, like, tape was not wanting to stick to it, like, you know, maybe 10 minutes after. So maybe it takes a little bit more time for it to fully set or whatever. And I need to start each layer with white. Like, I need to paint, you know, spray a layer of white and give it a fresh start. And then from there, start building another layer. I also don't know if I'm not so sure that portraits are the way to go. I went with a portrait because I thought it would be the most easily recognizable thing. A face, obviously a head, but it's giving too much of like flat illustration of today, you know, just kind of like that, like, yeah, that kind of illustration that you see all over the place. And that's not entirely what I was going for, unless maybe it is. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, whoa, maybe it's actually a build on that, and we're adding the gradients too. Okay, now we could be cooking with oil now, cooking with gas. Yeah, man, you see, things can just change from one second to the next, and that's kind of the volatility of my own mind, which kind of sucks. But usually, whenever I know something is one way that I can tell that something is on a good path is that I just get this excited feeling when looking at it. And it's just, I don't know that it's something, if it's something that every artist you kind of get, you know, I'm sure you do, like you get fucking hyped about what you're looking at. And it just kind of starts in your heart, and it feels a little bit like anxiety. It feels a little bit like, but it starts to build and it gets very exciting. And that's one way for sure that I know something's on the right path. And I did not feel that today. But when I talk about the flat illustration stuff and kind of these workarounds, building it on white, stuff like that, I start to feel a little bit more excited about the prospect. And that's also because I'm working through a problem. So what I'm, you know, most of painting is, I would say, and painting with a capital P, is creating problems, right? So I've created a problem for myself, and we're actively just trying to work through it now. Tomorrow I may or may not, you know, continue right on top. No, I definitely won't, because it peeled off, like it did this whole shitty thing. So that's gonna I'm gonna keep that piece. I'm not gonna throw it away, but it's going to just serve as like a prototype. And I think maybe I'll try something a little, it was originally meant to be done in oil. Maybe I'll start it in oil and try that. But yeah, man, I'm a bit frustrated, you know, ending the day, for sure. If you can't tell by like the, you know, freaking grimace that I've had on my face the whole time, my eyebrows furrowed as hell. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I'm gonna get some food. Oh man, you know, I hate to leave the video in such a, you know, such despair. I guess this is just, you know, this is just what it's like. This is just an honest look at what it's like, man. Especially, I think, if you're somebody like me, if you work in a similar way, you know, you get this feeling like, you know, I'm trying to get at like the most truest thing about myself. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm trying to like actively unearth something, you know, on canvas. And even though it's an experiment, even though it's just a little throwaway, even though it's blah blah blah, inevitably you just stake so much into what you're doing, and the perception of, you know, failure weighs heavy, you know. That's not to say that any of these things are objectively bad or objectively anything. It's just the way they feel. And I guess this is what I mean by like the anxiety, you know, or actually, well, that's a video that I recorded that I haven't posted, but, or maybe I did. Probably not though. But there's a great deal of anxiety, I guess, that comes from not having a daily working template that you can kind of default to and be like, okay, this is what I do every day. You know, if it's up in the air, it's up in the air, man. You know, when you've got something figured out, it's really figured out. But when you don't, it's almost, yeah, like it's almost your tether to like happiness and sanity is just kind of like cut until you get it figured back out, you know. And that's a lot, you know. It's a lot for, it's all self-imposed, obviously, but it feels like a lot. And it's just art, man. It's just painting. It's just, you know, colors and stuff. I don't know if this made it. I wanted to kind of end this on a happier note. I don't know if I'm actually doing that. But one thing that, you know, we can rely on is that tomorrow we will be back in there, and the act of discovery will happen, you know, all over again. And I think this is maybe just the advantage of having some kind of like working structure or having some semblance of repetition. Right now I'm kind of working in these like cursed cat, you know, images, and that's sort of like a tether, something that I can fall back on every day. But the reality is that the deeper part of me is the one that's wanting to like push and experiment and find something novel and new, and you know, and obviously that new, you know, new, I mean, you know, relative to me or relative to my practice, or a tweak that's whatever, you know what I mean. It's hard to explain the new thing in art, because then you get some fucking asshole who's like, well, there's nothing new under the sun. I know, dickhead, but it's like, you know, but there's my world, and there's new shit to me in my world. Yeah, man, I don't know. This is probably not the happiest ending, but I am gonna get home, and I am going to have some good food, and I'm gonna get some rest. And today is just one of those days where the studio kicked my ass. You know, it really did. The studio kicked my ass, and it makes it so that the work that I have done feels diminished. That's kind of the shitty part of it, is that if I'm working on something, let's say in the studio, that's kind of a serial thing that I'm working on, and I experiment with something and it goes great, everything else is going great. If I've got an experiment and it goes shitty, everything else is shitty. And in, you know, 10 years of painting, I have not been able to get past that. I've not been able to get through it. What I have been able to do, the progress that I have been able to make, is to not get upset at the paintings themselves and tear them up and throw them away and blah, blah, blah. I'm much better at just getting through it now and just keeping the corpse somewhere in a closet and just not looking at it, and then referring back to it if and when need be sometime in the future. So we're just gonna keep at it, man. Tomorrow's another day. But today fucking kind of sucks. Today sucks, man, but we're gonna kick ass, okay? Like, fuck that. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do a good job tomorrow. This thing is not, it's not killing us. It's not gonna defeat us. There's a problem. That's all it is. It's simply a problem meant to be solved. That's all, okay? And in these shitty moments, you just gotta like encourage yourself out of it, and you gotta tell yourself that you got this, man. And we do, in fact, got this. And it's a very beautiful sunset day, you know, in San Antonio. Everything looks gorgeous. It's a great day around me. It's a great day. even though it's not a great day inside of me, it is a great day around me. So I'm going to rely on that and take that to the bank. But I still feel like shit. Alright, dudes. Much love.